All right, this is going to be a tutorial on how to export gauges and viewports. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the pre-setup in Windows, based on your monitor configuration. For the tutorial, I'm going to put the gauges on the main screen because the video doesn't record both screens at the same time. So at least I don't think it does. So essentially what you want to do is you're going to right click and you're going to go to display settings, and you're going to ensure that your displays are set up the way you want to set up and ready for Helios to extract the gauges or write the files for DCS. Well, a couple of things I need to talk about. I have two monitors. Like I said, I'm going to do all my gauge stuff on monitor 1 so that you can see it while I'm in DCS and game. And monitor 2 is actually, depending on where you're going to place it at, whether it's going to be, on top, bottom, other side, or if you got two monitors, whatever the case may be. But I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to leave it like that because that's the way mine is set up. And then you can identify to make sure that your monitors are correct. One thing that Helios requires, and you'll see that once they start putting the file together, is that this scaling has got to be exactly the same. So you can't change the scaling to anything else. They both got to match. So leave them 100%, check both of them, make sure they're good to go, and that's pretty much how you do that. That's all you need to do in display settings. If you had more displays, there's a lot of other things you would do, but it's not a real big deal. But real quick, as you notice that if you look at this is a 1080p, so it's a 1920 by 1080, so it's 1920 pixels across the top, and this was a 1366 across the top. So you add those two together, and then the larger of the two on the vertical, which is 1080. So it'd be add these two together and play by 1080 would be your total pixel resolution area. All right, close that out. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is open up Helios profile editor. Let me see something here. I don't know whether looks like there's two open. Let me check that. See what that is. Close that out. There you go. All right. All right. So what I'm going to do is once you open it up, you'll have it untitled. It's not saved. It's not titled or anything. So you'll have two tabs across the top. Of course, your first monitor, which you can expand, zoom in, and zoom out based on what you want to see what you're doing, and the interface status. Interface status just tells you what's going on with Helios, and if there's any errors or that sort of thing that you need to fix. And of course, once you start getting it, you'll start seeing in interface status, there'll be some more blocks here to tell you what's going on. So right now the keyboard's okay, profile interface is okay because there is no profile interface right yet. So once you get that in there, you'll see that this stuff starts to change. The first thing I do is I add another monitor tab, which is this one. So you have monitor 1, monitor 2, based on what you want to look at, what you're going to place. For this purposes, I've got monitor 2 up here, but I'm not going to put anything in there because of the fact that the screen recording won't record what I'm doing. So I'll go back to monitor 1, which is where this is right now. I'm in monitor 1, and that's what I'll be working with. Several things you need to do prior to this is you got to be able to put the interfaces in here so that DCS and Helios talk back and forth. And so there are three things you need to do when you're doing the viewports or gauges or buttons or switches, is that you need to make sure you designate the aircraft and DCS viewports and DCS monitor setup, because that's going to write all the code to into the Helios file, because that's what you'll use. It'll be Helios as your monitor configuration, and that's what you use when you go into the setup screen in DCS when you pick the particular screen you want to use in the resolution. Okay, so now I'll go up here and show you how to install the interfaces. Right here it says add interface. There's going to be 3 of them that you need for the F-18 DCS. So first one will be DCS F-18, so we'll find that, which is right here. Click on it. You want to add, it's going to add a tab across the top. Okay, you're going to add viewports, add interface, additional viewports, add. Then you're going to come down here and add DCS monitor setup, add. So now you got interface status, monitor 1, monitor 2, DCS F18, DCS additional viewports, and a DCS monitor setup. Okay, I'm going to go back to interface status and see what it's telling me. Okay, additional viewports, we hadn't put any in there, so it's still check mark. But once we get it installed or in the screen itself, you'll see these start to change, and you have to make configuration changes. Right now, DCS monitor setup, so you need to set up the file. And it says Windows reports scaling value, and that's what we talked about, 100%. So you should be good with that. Just make sure they're exactly the same. You must save this profile before you can use monitor setup because it needs to know the profile's name. So it tells you, you come down here, you got to save the profile. So right down here, you got the exclamation point. And it tells you, hey, these are your monitors, and we need that monitor to set up the DCS monitor, writing the file. So I'm just going to go up here. I'll go save. And it's going to ask me, save, we'll just go test. Okay. Save. So now profile interface is a green check now. Okay, now I'm going to go to DCS monitor setup. So I'm going to go up here to the tab to the DCS monitor setup. And it's going to give you a page that basically tells you that the monitor hasn't been set up and the file hasn't been written yet. And so this is your in-game view look. This is the menu look, okay? And this is your total resolution of both screens. Mine is 3286 by 1080. And that's what you'll be using when you go into DCS and set up your screen and your resolution. Okay, as you can see, this is the 1080p, 1920 by 1080, and this is 1366 by 768. And then they gray hash mark this area, which is not going to be used because there is nothing there, obviously. But it's just telling you this is 3286 by 1080. Okay, so to get this set up, you just go down to the bottom. It says monitor setup file needs to be configured. So it needs to be configured to what you have. So you just hit the button, configure. Now it says monitor setup files are up to date. So if you go up here to interface status, you'll see that everything's green checked. Okay, so you're good to go on that point. So now, like I said, I would have put, you're probably going to put your gauges and all that or whatever on the second monitor or third monitor. But for this purposes, I'm only going to use the one monitor so you can see it actually working on the screen. Okay, down here you have F18C, the gauges, the viewport. So you have this, which is your bezels. So you can actually put the bezels on the screen and keybind all these OSB buttons or whatever you want to use so that when you either have a touchscreen, you touch it, or you mouse click it, it sends a signal to the interface to DCS to activate that stuff. It's very similar to the ADI, which is what I'm going to demonstrate, and how you install the key bindings for those particular items. Down here, the F18 gauges, which is one of the ones I will use, and I'll go to monitor 1, like I said. All right. So I'm going to use the ADI. I'm going to drag that over here and put it right here so that we can see it. And it's going to be on the main screen. Obviously, it would be on the secondary screen or wherever you want to. And so now that I've got the box highlighted, if you look at the right-hand side on the layout, it tells you how far left, how many pixels left it is, and how many pixels from the top, 61, and the width, 350 by 350. You can change all this to make it a different size or whatever. You can click and drag these things to make it bigger or smaller or however you want to do, depending on where you want to place it. So now that I got that one in there, as you can see, I go back to interface status, you'll see that it's changed. And you don't have to do anything right at the moment because you're going to put more screens on, more viewports on here, or more gauges and stuff. You're going to have to continue to save that. But let's just get the stuff done first, and then I'll save it here in a minute. So let's go back to the monitor. Okay, I'm going to go down here to the viewports. And let's just use the left DDI, MFCD, whatever. It's all the same, I guess. So I'll click, drag it over. I'm going to put it up here in this corner because of the fact that so we can see it when we're in game with the airplane cockpit behind us, and you may not be able to see it. Okay, so now I got the two items in here, and I want to make this stuff work, right? I want to make the pitch and bank stuff work. So I'm going to highlight it. Down here in the input output, you'll look at here, it says interfaces. So I'm going to click on that. And so right now I want to do the DCS F18C interface. So I want to click that down, highlight that, make sure that when you highlight that, you got your bindings on the right-hand side for that particular gauge. So I want to go find the standby attitude indicator. There it is right there, SAI. So there's pitch change, bank change, slip ball. Those are the three things I want so that thing works. Okay, so now there's the set slip offset. So I'm going to take and click on that, hold it, and then drag it over, and I'm going to drop it right on top of that slip. And you see there's the trigger for the slip ball to move back and forth. Now I'm going to find set pitch, set bank. So pitch is right here. I'm going to drag it over, set it on pitch. So it sets the trigger for that. Bank, I'm going to set it over here on the set bank, and that sets the trigger for that. So now, once we save this and go into game, and that should be working. All right, so now that I've done everything I want to do so far to this thing, I'm going to go back to interface status. You'll see that things have changed because we added some items on here. You have to set up the monitor so that it knows that's where it wants to be, right? And so down here in the recommendation column, it tells you recommend what you do. So it says right here, it says does not support different display scalings, which is what we talked about, 100%, and you already did that, so you don't have to worry about that. So you have these exclamation points that are telling you, hey, you gotta fix this stuff because you move stuff around on your monitor. So you just go up here to the cog, you click on it. Monitor setup file needs to be reconfigured. So it wants to rewrite where you put that in the monitor Lua file, or the Helios monitor setup Lua file. So I'm going to configure that. Now it says it's up to date. Go back to the interface status. And now this is, again, it's telling me that you made changes and I have to save it, right? So I'm just going to save it. Profile, save. Okay, now everything's saved. Everything's green check mark, and everything should be good to go. So we'll go on and talk about the control center, because now you got to be able to turn this stuff on or turn it off so that DCS connects to the DCS. I'm going to minimize this. I want to go down here to the control center, and as you can see, there's only one. It says test. If you had 4 or 5 profiles, you click these buttons up and down, it'll cycle through whatever profiles you have. So if you have different profiles for different airplanes or different monitor setups, you can just change it, and then it would set that particular file into there so that you can change it. But the way you start it and the way you stop it is, before you do that, let's see, the preferences is stuff that you can set based on how you want the control center to start when you start Windows or start the game or manually start it or whatever. So I'll turn that off. Okay, now to get it running, if it's automatic, you set the preference for that, it should automatically start. But you can start it by hitting this, and you'll see that the gauges appear. The viewport won't, because it doesn't have the information yet because you're not in DCS. When you start this, you'll see the gauge because that's from Helios. It's just putting it on there until the time when you start the game. Then it'll, those key bindings, those bindings that you had for pitch and bank will start working. All right, so I'm going to hit start. There's the gauge. And if you look at it, this basically tells you some instructions that you need to do. It says, you have to have the full screen unchecked, and a couple of other items, but it just kind of tells you what's going on. It also will give you, if it doesn't pass the pre-flight test, it'll give you some red indicators, and you got to go back and fix them. All right, I'm going to hide this, and I am going to start DCS. I'm going to show you what you got to do. Once you start DCS, there's a few things you got to do and make sure that you have it correctly so that it will display on your separate screens. Okay, got to go to settings. Okay, Okay, down here you got some stuff that you got to fix. So you got the resolution, which is not the resolution of what I have, but you got to fix the thing now. You see, it says monitor is Helios. It's already set. So I need to change that resolution to whatever the two screens are. And so I said it was I have a 1080, I'm sorry, 1920 plus 1366 equals 3286 by 1080. So I'll click this, and I got to find it 3286 by 1080 right there. So I'll click on that. So now I got the resolution set for the two screens, and it gives me automatically gives me a aspect ratio of this. And then make sure your Helios file, a Helios generated monitor setup is selected there. You don't want any other ones except for the Helios right there. Okay, now you can hit OK. Oh, make sure this full screen's unchecked. Okay, because I told you that in the Helios control panel. Okay, so that's good. Now it's resetting the monitors. It'll start up automatically because I had to change it. And you can see that DCS is kind of half off the screen because what it's doing is it's centering on both the screens because of the way you set up the monitors. If you can see at the very edge of that DCS right here, it's on the secondary screen. Okay, so now we're in the main screen, menu screen, and I'm going to go to Instant Action, go to Free Flight. Okay, now I'm going to go fly. Okay, so now we're flying. As you can see, this gauge is where I placed it on that monitor. You can see the left DDI right here. I don't know, it's very, not quite visible. It's not very bright, but that's where I placed it. So wherever you place it on the secondary monitor, that's where it's going to show up. Because now DCS is talking to Helios through the file it wrote. Okay, now I'm going to do some turning left and right. And you'll see the gauge work. Okay, go up, down, right way. So I'm going to come back and hit the autopilot, and so it'll crash here. So anyway, you get the idea of how it works. But if you click on these buttons, you'll see this up here change. Let me change this to HUD. You can see it's changed. Up here in the upper left-hand corner, you see it's now HUD. Change radar. There's your radar. So anyway, that's pretty much it. If you got any questions, just you can message me or however you want to do it, and hope that helped. That'll always show up until you turn it off. So if I went down here to exit, anything you have on the screen, so go back to the Helios control center, and then I can turn it off or hide it, stop it, it'll go away, turn this off, and you're good to go. Anyway, that's how you do that.